Welcome to TungstenTales, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to say we've been joined by our tournament sponsors, BetVictor, Charlie McCann. Thanks for joining us, Charlie.
Pleasure, Paul. Thank you.
So last evening, we lost one of the big hitters, Adrian Lewis. Obviously, lost 16-8 to Gary. That was the surprise, perhaps the scoreline.
Oh, no, it was no surprise that Anderson beat Lewis. It was the manner. You kept waiting when Gary took an early lead. You kept waiting for Adrian to fight back, but such was Anderson's dominance on his own throw that Adrian, you were almost looking that he had to, against the throw, had to win inside 12 legs to have any chance. And no, it was a dominating performance by somebody who's now transferred his floor successes. He's, I think, won 5. And of course, he did win the last tournament in Dusseldorf. He's the last few days he's been here at the Blackpool Football Club Hotel, and he just seems at one. He just seems, there's never more than a smile always on his face. He has his new baby, and no, he's. I wonder if he has benefited from that hard game with Janie Caven. Yeah. He got that out the way, whereas Adrian had that. His 10-0 success against, and he's peaked. You can't go on averaging 110, and then of course he came on the second time, and his, it's almost his angle decline has been quite steep since his first 110. But let's not take anything away from Gary Anderson. And here we are in the BetVictor World Matchplay Finals, and we've got 3 of the top 4 seeds in it. Yeah. There's no fluke in this, and the number 11 shouldn't. He's the number 11 seed. He's not really the number 11 seed, is he, on current form? No. He certainly was in the top 5.
That's right, and realistically, you say with 5 tournament wins, 2014. He was great in the World Championship. He was great in the Premier League. It's happening again now. Now, the real Gary Anderson is standing up. Like you say, he seems more relaxed, and we know he hits 180s as well as anyone. So if those doubles start going in like they did last evening, 55%, he can beat anyone.
Oh no, and and he has the opportunity to beat the man as well this evening when he goes head to head with Phil Taylor. Interestingly, for the first time, I've been with Phil, and I'm not going to jump ship. I've been with Phil all week, but for the first time last night, I just 16-6 sounds comprehensive, and yes, it was, but it wasn't really the Phil I expected. And when it was a real game of darts, Phil wasn't really in control, and Wes was. It was only really when Wes started sort of almost fading his and pulling his first dart into the 5 that he had trouble, that Phil really got on top. Yeah. And not a tournament a Taylor-like average. Anderson's going to score heavily on his throw. We know that. There probably won't be many breaks. I still am with Taylor. But just for the first times, is that just maybe the slight crack? And Phil has got to play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights if he wants to retain a 7th successive title. Yeah. And this won't be easy this evening. No,
absolutely. And the players Gary has beat on, say, Jamie Caven, Stephen Bunting, Adrian Lewis. These are big names, big hitters. But am I right in thinking Gary's available 2-1 this evening?
It's an extraordinary thing that everybody I've spoken to since we knew Anderson would play Taylor, everyone has sort of said, "Oh, I fancy Gary Anderson." With that in mind, it seems so surprising that 7-4. It was 4-9, 7-4, 4-9 Phil, 7-4 Gary Anderson. It's now 2-5 and 2-1, and not only that, they've flip-flopped. That Phil is the new favourite for the BetVictor World Matchplay. It's 11-8 now from 6-4 Phil Taylor, and 6-4 from 11-8. Michael van Gerwen. Yeah. Gary Anderson, arguably the most impressive quarter-finalist, is out from 4-1 to 5-1, and it's 10-1 Simon. It does seem surprising that. Yeah. And to put it mildly, you can get 2-1 for Anderson to win this evening, 5-1 for him to win the tournament. Yes, he may have to beat Phil Taylor and Michael van Gerwen in successive days, but he's beaten Henry Lewis.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, can you imagine? He beat the BDO World Champion, Adrian Lewis, 2-time World Champion, Phil Taylor, 16-time World Champion, and get on and beat the current World Champion. I mean, and he is playing well enough. I think he's confident enough to do it, and he's a favourite with the fans, isn't he? They like Gary.
Oh yeah, that's. I think I think Sky picked up on it yesterday that they thought that Adrian was a bit because Adrian had come on to sort of roars from the crowd. But of course, this Blackpool crowd is almost Glaswegian. You know, the Commonwealth Games may be going on, but there's certainly a lot of Scottish darts fans here. And Gary is a really lovely. You know, he plays the way he did the game. He plays it rat-a-tat-tat. Will Phil try and get under his skin, Paul? That is the one thing. Will he try and slow him up this evening? You know, it's all right playing Adrian when Adrian wants to go, you know, toe for toe with you. Phil, you know, wily, whatever you describe it. Phil, you know, Phil generally sort of, you know, he can score as heavily as anyone, but when push comes to shove, Phil knows that you know, you don't become 16 times world champion by not knowing, you know, when to slow the game down, when to take a bit deep in and take a breath. When you think Gary's not right, okay, let's slow Gary down. Let's see if Gary can do this when he's not in that rhythm that he was with Adrian and Jamie and earlier on in the week with Stephen Bunting. But that drift out to 2-1 is surprising, because it is surprising.
Yeah. Looking at the first semi-final, will be we've got Michael van Gerwen, very short price, I would imagine. Yeah,
it's 2-9 against Simon 100-30. Again, Simon's taken out Barneveld and Wade in this, you know. So again, it's not as if he's been having buys all the way through, and it'd be an extraordinary thing, of course, if he went 4-0 down and won again. I mean, to go back and win from 4-0 down in once, you know, is against a 5-time world champion of Barneveld one, but to do it against James, who's got such a good record here at the Winter Gardens. And of course, both wins were so comprehensive. It wasn't as if he's, you know, they were narrow 13-12 successes. He's given them a 4-leg start and picking them up easily. I would be. I don't think he'd want to give Michael a 4-leg start.
No.
I don't think that'll be in the game plan. But again, I think this will be fast. You know, Simon's in good form on the 180s himself. You know, we're looking for those big Whitlock finishes. But we asked if Van Gerwen had another gear in his quarter-final. He had it. He may have to in the semi-final or the final. But you just think that maybe Van Gerwen. I'm surprised again that the favourites have flip-flopped for the first time in the week. I'm wondering and thinking, well, Van Gerwen is a worthy favourite, and yet the darts punters think otherwise. It's strange, but we'll see. You know, that's the beauty of the game. Any one of these four players can win. Any one of these four players can win this evening, and of course tomorrow night. But it's a fantastic night of darts to look forward to.
It is, absolutely. And we look at maybe some prices for the to name the finalists. I know this is a popular bet with some of the punters.
Oh, no, this is a popular bet, and of course Van Gerwen and Taylor at the start. I think after the first round it was 11-4, and that's come all the way into 4-6. So it's 4-6 for the power to meet, for the 1 and 2 seeds to meet. Yeah. It's then 5-2 for Anderson and Van Gerwen. It's 5-1 for Taylor and Whitlock. And if you fancy the two outsiders, Anderson and Whitlock, it's 12-1 for the Australian and the Glaswegian and the Scot, sort of the and the Scot for Gary Anderson, the number 11 seed to meet the number 4 seed in the final. 12-1. Again, a few people have suggested that might be a tad overpriced.
Yeah, well, I think I'd sooner have 12s there than I would 4-6 on Phil and Michael. I don't know, maybe.
Well, it's. I mean, the punters. You know, we're probably opposing them because, of course, you know, it won't be a good result for the for ourselves, for the sponsors, if the favourites. You know, everyone. You know, when we've taken on Taylor. Our guys, our traders, they felt that, you know, we were 72 biggest, we 3 biggest. Yeah. I'd suggest now that maybe the liabilities is why we've cut him to 11-8 rather than 6-4. But I think we've with the BetVictor hat on, BetVictor shirt on, I think I'd want one of them beaten. Yeah. It might be a bit fingers crossed there.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to be a devil in the deep blue sea. It's a little bit if they both get through. At the moment, who would be the worst result out of the two?
Phil is the worst result for us in the book, only because, you know, we've kept Michael on our side and we've been with the world champion, and you can imagine. I think as much as anything, you think, well, he can't win it again, can he? He can't win it 137 time on the run. That's something ridiculous. I mean, that's the only sort of lodge. But, you know, no. In fairness, he was beaten by Michael Smith in Gibraltar. He hasn't been in the prime form, but then of course you hear the whispers that his darts, he's in great form, and of course this is his he's the king of Blackpool.
Yeah.
He's the king of Blackpool, and Gary Anderson is. Until last night, I think he'd gone under the radar. I think no longer can we say that. He's consistently averaging 100. Nobody's going to break his serve. We know he's going to score heavily. And unless Phil completely gets underneath his skin, I think you're going to get an absolute classic game of darts this evening.
Fantastic. And Charlie, any specials at all for this evening?
Well, having said, I'm not going to jump ship. I think Phil's going to have to, rather than back Phil at now what I think a very prohibitive 2-5, over 100.5 is 5-6 for Taylor's average. And I think he's got to.
Yes.
I think if he doesn't, so in effect I'm saying I'd rather back him at 5-6 than 2-5, because I think if he doesn't average over 100.5, I don't think he'll win.
No.
It's as simple as that. So I'd rather do that. And in the Van Gerwen versus Whitlock game, Simon is 5-4 to hit the most 180s. And I think that might be a tad overpriced as well. I think that I make that a toss-up. And if we're saying 5-4, Simon, was a heavy scorer, and Michael really hasn't been, in his prime scoring. And he dipped below 100 in his average last game. So yeah, they would be mine. Taylor to average over 100.5 against Anderson, and Whitlock to have more 180s than Van Gerwen at 5-4.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Charlie McCann from, of course, the tournament sponsor, BetVictor. My name is Paul Starr in association with Unicorn Darts. That was TungstenTales. Keep it at the sharp end of world darts. Thanks for joining us.